Right, well, it's the 8th of January 2011, and I've just finished painting the main body shell. So after all those months and months and months of welding and filling and whatever, I'm actually fairly pleased with what I've got here. The colour looks fantastic. Probably doesn't show up that well on film, but it's carnation red. It's going to look absolutely beautiful when it's on the road, which is what I want. The finish is not too bad. I had a lot of trouble with the gun initially. I used a HVLP gun, which I hadn't used before, and it really wasn't very kind to me, and I ended up putting a couple of coats on and then wet rubbing it back and respraying it. This has now got about 10 coats of paint on it, so there's plenty of meat there to strip, rub back and polish, which is what I'll do, of course. Got to do a bit of touching up inside here. There's a bit of dusty overspray stuff, and I'm not quite sure. I might sand this back and give another coat. I had a slight mishap during the wet rubbing process, in that this dolly that I made to wheel the body around on, which has worked really well, the body slipped off it. Didn't damage anything, I thought, but I've just discovered this little bit here is bent up. Bit of a difference between that and this one here, so that's just something I'll have to knock back out and touch up, but it's not a major catastrophe. Okay, there's a little bit of dust and stuff around here. The enamel seems to match really well with the acrylic lacquer. Enamel on the inside of the bonnet, acrylic lacquer on the outside. Cannot tell the difference at all between the colour. These front sections here have come up really quite well. I think they're going to buff up beautifully and they'll look really nice. All appears there's no sort of funny strange dents or anything that are not looking good, so I think that'll be fine. I might redo some of this bitumen paint here, undersill. There's just some general cleaning up I've got to do. The sills, the new sills, look fabulous. I'm very pleased with them. They're all sparkly new, and so they should be, and they're going to buff up really well. I'm actually pretty pleased with the paint work. I think it looks good. I think it's going to look terrific when it's all polished up. So I'm not going to polish this for a while. I really want to let it set off for a good month, I reckon. 28 days, 3 or 4 weeks, something like that. And I'm going to get it back onto the chassis, which is underneath that cover there, and is complete. So hopefully within the next few days I'll have this back on the chassis. I just have to make a roll bar bracket, because I'm fitting a roll bar onto the car that wasn't there before, so I have to do that before I put the body on, otherwise I can't do it afterwards. And some little bits of spray paint and touch-ups and things like that. But colour's good. Heaps of paint on there. I think it's going to really shine up really well. I'm a bit annoyed here because it kind of doesn't show up on film, but there are a couple of spots here where I just touched the back of the gun on it when it was wet. It's just left what looks like a little scratch, but isn't a scratch. Might wet rub out, or I may end up having to redo that slight touch up there. I'm not quite sure. We'll see what happens when I try and rub it out. But it's a real milestone, actually, after all that time, and it looks good. Just thought I'd wheel it back into the shed to get a better idea of the colour in the light, and the shine on there is quite good, as can be seen. And this section here, which was so bad before, really has come up very well. I'm very pleased with that. There's a few little things that I've got marked. There's a little marks here while I've been fitting up the radiator grille, which has been incredibly difficult to do. And there's a few little chips and things, but I'll touch them up and they won't show when the radiator grille's in. There's lots of sort of sanding, dust, and you know, it just needs a clean. So I've got to get the air duster out and give it a good blast off, I think. But the colour is really quite beautiful. It looks orange in the camera, but it isn't really. It's more a dark blood red colour. Yeah, very pleasing.